What's up everybody, I'm Mace and I'm here today to talk to you guys about Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue Eau Intense Pour Homme. This is the men's version of the ever popular light blue line. The women's line is more in the public eye, it's a little bit more well known, but the men's version is also very popular and it is also excellent. This is the Eau Intense version, which I think is pretty widely agreed upon to be the better version, the Eau Intense, because the light blue, as the name would imply, is a very light fragrance, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but on the original the performance is very lackluster. On the Eau Intense, the performance is actually excellent for a fresh fragrance, and that's really what you're coming here for. This is among the best performing fresh fragrances you can get, really, for any price. Even among niche fragrances, this is still excellent performance. Of course, performance alone doesn't make something a good fragrance. The scent profile on this one is a little bit different than both the women's line and the original light blue. Up top you get what in the official notes they call iced grapefruit and I believe mandarin. But really how that comes across in the beginning is just kind of generic citrus accord. Not generic in a bad way, but it is a pretty standard citrus accord. But what comes across very strong even in the very beginning is juniper. Juniper is used heavily in gin. This does not smell at all alcoholic, not even really boozy, but at times in the life of the fragrance it can be reminiscent of like a really good gin, that nice juniper smell you get from a really good gin. It also has a good dose of sea salt in there, just a nice saltiness, again all the way from the beginning, all the way from when you first put it on. During the life of the fragrance, basically those citrus fruits die down over time. Over the first couple of hours those will go down and completely go away after the first couple of hours, and then you're left with that juniper and that sea salt. And in the official notes of the fragrance they quote cedar and I believe amberwood. I don't really get much of either of those until the very far dry down, like 6+ hours in. Then I start to get some cedar, but really for the most part I would consider this a juniper fragrance. A juniper fragrance with sea salt and a few backing notes, but really predominantly you're getting a sharp, crisp juniper. And sharp is definitely the right word for this fragrance. Both in the beginning and all through the life, it is an exceptionally sharp fragrance. It can be a bit too much if you were to put too much on, if you were to overspray. Although I will say, even though it is fairly strong, you are completely safe to wear as many as 4 sprays. I think 4 sprays you're still fine with this. 4, you are good to go. However, as you start to increase the number of sprays, I would hold back past that. It's not like something like the original Acqua di Gio. The original Acqua di Gio, you could go 9 or 10 sprays and no one would mind. This one, it is a little bit too sharp to be doing that. But between 2 and 4 sprays, you're great. And that sharpness makes it very attention grabbing. This is something that even if someone just catches a small whiff of it, they will immediately notice it. They will 100% notice it, and you'll get a lot more compliments and attention from it than some other things, just because it's so sharp, it doesn't stay in the background of their minds. It's very attention grabbing. It'll get their focus onto you, which is good. That's what you want in this kind of a fragrance. And I will also say that it is a really great summertime fragrance, but it's a summertime fragrance that can actually work all year round, even though the character of this is very fresh, very bright, and personality wise I would say it leans very far into the summer. But as far as the performance of the fragrance, because of that juniper, which is not the most summery fruit necessarily, or berry, it's not the most summery thing. It comes across summery in this, but it itself isn't necessarily summery. Because of that juniper and just the strength of the fragrance, it can definitely be used all year round, no problem. This is definitely signature scent worthy, and definitely worthy of a lot of the acclaim that it gets in the fragrance community, which is quite considerable. This is a lot of people's favorite fragrance, and I think for good reason. Performance-wise, I get 8+. This one depends really heavily on what you're doing, because I've noticed that if you're sweating, if you're doing anything like that, it will project considerably more heavily and also go away much more quickly. But even then, it will still last a good 8 hours in my experience. But if you're in a more office type setting, it'll last 10 or 12 even. But this one does vary quite a bit depending on what you're doing. And I imagine it would also depend a lot on your skin chemistry. So this one might not work as well for everyone as it does for me. So you might not get 10 or 12 hours in the office on this one because it does vary so much. So that's why I'm saying 8+. I think everybody can pretty solidly get 8 hours on this guy. Especially if you're doing that 4 sprays. If you're going less sprays than that, maybe a little bit less, or at least you will stop noticing it sooner. And I would say it projects quite well. I would say considerably above average on the projection. Nothing like a Dior Sauvage, nothing like an Ultra Male, but it does project quite well. Definitely above average. Definitely more than enough to get you noticed. If you wanted to use it in the club or in a situation like that where you could say competing fragrances with your own, it could do that for sure. It could pull that off. It's right there on that edge, but it could pull it off. Yeah, and this is not terribly expensive. You can get it discounted in the $50 range. I believe it varies a lot depending on season. It might be more right now just because it's summer, but in that $50 range. So this one's highly recommended for me. Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue Eau Intense. Yeah, that's about it. You guys have a great day.